You can talk about it. Hi, welcome to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm Robert Winters. Welcome to another exciting edition. Today is February 16th,
And
2016.
No council meeting yesterday, so you didn't get to...
That's right. Actually, it was no council meeting last week because it got snowed out. But
so it's been 2 weeks.
And then the snow didn't come.
Oh my goodness.
And then this week it was President's Day.
Right.
So nothing going.
I forgot about that. I knew that was
I actually
long.
forgot about it too. I was ready to go pick up council materials on Thursday into Friday, and then I went, oh, wow,
Yeah,
get
it's
the
a
week
holiday,
off. Yeah,
right.
real nice. Yeah.
So
that was-
let's assume they're doing something.
They're doing something.
But we don't.
Generally, the procedure is whenever there's a cancellation, they take the agenda items from the meeting that was canceled, and they just roll them in, and they just add on to them.
Oh.
So they'll become the new items.
Do they have committee meetings? Or do they anyway during the meeting?
They could have. I mean, the thing is once the mayor makes the appointments, which even though it was only announced at the meeting, but it was actually an agenda item at the meeting that didn't happen.
Right.
They've been appointed, so there's nothing stopping a chair from just getting together and having a meeting.
It is school vacation week though, so those with kids are probably not going to.
But the thing is that if you're going to have a meeting, you also have to have something to do at a meeting, and it's a new council.
True.
There are some holdover items.
Yeah.
I think there's one item in an ordinance committee that's held over from last year. Other than that, there's not been enough interesting orders or initiatives begun. So it's just not a whole lot happening. It's kind of a dead zone in a little bit.
Well, I think it may get a little more exciting in the next few months because at the Cambridge Recycling Advisory Committee meeting, Owen,
Commissioner of Public Works.
Right. They spent a lot of time talking about the polystyrene ordinance.
Yeah.
And how it really, well, I'm using my own words, needs to be tweaked because it's so restrictive for some items. So that's going to be happening, I think, down the road.
Oh, good. Yeah. I had a conversation with the mayor a few weeks ago.
Did that come up?
Well, a number of things came up, but one of the things that I expressed to her, and I really meant this very sincerely, was that I was hoping that this would be a council not of the big grand initiatives so much as the more of a custodial council that looks at all the little things and fixes all the things that need fixing.
Okay. Well,
kind of a little less ambitious, not the net zero and grand anything.
They've done a lot of this, and they have the Envision task force.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be this citywide planning process that'll be going on. That's kind of a big item, I suppose.
Yeah. Right.
But I think but the council is sort of only peripherally involved in that.
True.
They pretty much set it up and said, do it.
Right.
That's true. And then, then everybody kind of just sets back, That's kind of the way it works. So anyway, in the meantime, I think it would be a nice thing if you found things like an ordinance, like the polystyrene ordinance that was passed last year that had a few, I think, flaws in it, that they just make some corrections. They did pass the Barrett petition several weeks ago, and some people believe, I don't know if it's true or not, but some people believe that maybe there's a couple of tweaks should have been made. In fact, they said as much when they did the vote. So I said, okay, so fine, in the coming weeks, the ordinance committee should come and do a small change.
But it's not set in stone, right? Ordinances can be, an amendment? Or?
The thing is when you do a zoning petition, you're essentially amending the zoning ordinance. You can amend it again.
But any ordinance I'm talking about. Can an ordinance?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's less. You can pass an ordinance, just an ordinance, like by a simple majority vote. Zoning ordinance by state law require 2/3 majority, supermajority vote. Sometimes 3/4 if enough property owners object. So it's a little bit stiffer.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what goes on.
Well, that's good.
So I was thinking a couple days ago. I said, okay, we're going to do a show, right? It's like, let's see. We got no guest. We got no city council business to speak of. So he says, what shall we do? What shall we do? So anyway, I had a notion.
Yeah.
Now, this is based on the concept of a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I'm a keeper of little fun facts, photos, historical bits and pieces of Cambridge going back over the centuries. I've got I've got like, let's see, I got like, this wide, whatever wide, of books on Cambridge history, going back
Really?
to, oh yeah.
Real
oh, yeah.
books?
Real books, back, those things they kind of like printed on paper with like ink.
I mean, are these books produced by, I know the Historical Commission has produced
Well,
them.
I mean, I've got some really serious old ones. I got
So beyond that,
a couple copies of Lucius Page's History of Cambridge, which is the best. That was
really?
published in 1877.
Oh my goodness.
I have City Cambridge annual reports for
Yes.
bunches of years.
Okay.
Back when they were like this thick.
Yeah.
From
Like the Globe, the old newspapers.
Yeah, from 1896 all the way through the 1930s up until about 1940. And a few other good items, really chunky items. Some of my favorites are I actually have a few of them right here. Worth showing. I'm going to pull a few items from them.
Well, that's what I meant, the Cambridge Historical Commission.
Yeah, one of the nicest things the city of Cambridge has done in the last half a century or so was producing a series of books called the Survey of Architectural History in Cambridge. They began, and I believe it was 1967 when they published the East Cambridge book number 1. And then that was followed by book number 2, which was Mid Cambridge, and then book number 3.
Oh, Cambridgeport.
Which was Cambridgeport.
I'd like to look at that later.
Yeah. I have a few copies.
My goodness,
I have
there's
loaners.
a few copies. You have loaners?
Anyone, you
All
need
right.
a copy, ask, just ask. And number 4 was, it's kind of, I find it interesting, people when they think of historic Cambridge, they go out to Harvard Square and they look at old Cambridge and they think, well, that's number 4, that came 4th in the series. And then the 5th one, and I don't even know what year it was when it was published, was Northwest Cambridge, which is really the last area to really be developed.
Is that up by Danahy
Brickyards area, that's where the brick industry was really, really big.
Right.
And it's a great series.
Nice.
And actually, I'll say one other thing for chatting about other stuff, which is the 1967 book on East Cambridge. I have to make sure I stay in the screen here. Was really great. It kind of set the standard. It wasn't just architectural history, so it wasn't just, though there are lots and lots of pictures of buildings.
Yes.
It also has a lot of historical maps, so if you really wanted to learn about the development of the city, about transportation in the city, industrial history of the city, history of the government in Cambridge, there's a tremendous amount of it that's in here. And they went through the 5 series, and then when they got to the end, what do you do when you get to the end?
I don't know.
You go back to the beginning.
You start over.
There goes one.
Oh.
And you republish the East Cambridge one. I think this was
With new material or revised?
There are some changes. In some ways, it's a whole new book. Right? So this is, I think, 1987 or 89, thereabouts. My understanding is that they actually put together a redo of Volume 4, which is the old Cambridge book, that was sort of under review, but I don't know that it's not yet been published. All of these ones were published by MIT Press. I'm
sure they're available at the Cambridge Public Library.
You can get them at the Cambridge Public Library.
Area for historical things like that.
I just went over, I have like a permanent search in Google, or excuse me, on eBay, so that whenever one of them comes up, I see it.
To personally get it.
But I already got multiple copies of all of them, so to me it's just a matter of padding it to have extra loaners for people.
Right, but I'm just saying if people wanted to just go, I think they have a very good research area at the library.
All 5 of them are bundled together up there. Maybe they have individuals as well, but it's a great series if you really want to learn about the city that you live in.
Yes,
it's a great place to start. I mean, I'm more than happy to show people a few others. Okay. So what I did, just a couple nights ago, I pulled out just a series of photos and some scans that I had taken. Some of them were from these books, but also from elsewhere. And as I mentioned earlier, it's sort of on the theme of a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yes, instead of just seeing us all the time.
Yeah, so anyway, so I thought what we do is just sort of walking through some of these pictures here. Great. So let's see if we can do this successfully.
Easily. There we go.
All right. So
this is...
this first image here is, this is taken from one of the Survey of Architectural History books, primarily East Cambridge. I put it up there because it's funny, I know about this, a lot of people know about, but many many people new to the city and many people who were born and raised here may not even know where the actual shorelines of Cambridge and the eastern part of the city really were.
Before they put fill in?
But they put fill in. And it's an interesting thing. Owen O'Riordan and John Nardone from the Public Works Department, when they first arrived here, they were dealing with scouting out and mapping some of the sewer system. They were finding old tide gates from where that were buried underneath the fill that were, it was actually pretty important to know about.
So show me in this map, because I can use the little finger here to show me where is it today? Is this back in, what year is this? 1807?
This is 1807.
1887 it says here, all the way over to the left.
Right,
Grand
it's actually
Junction.
showing where the white areas were dry land in 1777. There's some other kind of key for 1777 to 1830.
So all of this, the plain white was here,
That was
and
all
none of
high
that.
and dry. Yeah.
And the rest was all fill?
It's all filled. So you see that actually going right up to where Lafayette Square, where Columbia Street comes down to Main Street, pretty much where we are. This would have been beachfront property right now.
Now I'm looking at Putnam Ave. I think I just made it, actually.
Putnam Ave, which was once called Walnut Avenue.
So that actually did come down to the...
Putnam Avenue just basically was a little short stretch, down toward the end.
Oh, but wait a minute. No. Pearl is not in there. You have Brookline and Magazine. So yes, it is in there.
Is named because that was the road you took from Central Square down to the old Powder Magazine.
Oh, right. Not
which was actually on an island called,
that's right.
I believe it's called Captain's Island.
Yeah, I think I think you can see that
you have
maybe.
to sort of scroll down a little bit to see that. Yeah,
right there, number 4, right?
That's right.
Captain's Island, Powder Magazine.
That's right. So you took Magazine Street to get to the magazine.
Was there a bridge there?
No.
Okay.
Right, but actually, I don't know how he did it. He might have just made a causeway just to connect over.
Something.
I think that's what's more than likely. The early roads were all kind of purposeful. Now, here's a little quiz question that you may or may not know about.
Okay.
At the top of the picture, you see there's Hampshire Street.
Yes, right
from,
here.
Kendall Square heading west.
Right.
Now, do you know why it's called Hampshire Street?
It's an English name, that's all I know, right?
Well,
Hampshire?
But actually you'll see the answer shortly.
Oh, okay.
So maybe I'll hold off on giving the answer until right now.
Okay.
But Hampshire Street is actually one of the original turnpikes of New England, and I'll tell you more about that.
All right.
But see, the major streets, so let's scroll down to the next one. Maybe I think that would be sort of okay. Oh, actually, was one other thing I wanted to say about this one, which is, scroll down, and I think you'll see it
the next map?
In the next map.
Right, this map or one beyond?
Yeah, just this one right here.
Okay.
Now, this is a map here also taken from one of the surveys of architectural history of Cambridge.
Okay.
Shows who the principal property owners were at the time. So Andrew Boardman, who owned much of the property as you headed up toward what eventually became the Craigie Bridge.
Held until 1802.
Right. But you see what the development of the roads, there weren't so many back then, but they were built primarily when the bridges were open. When the bridges were open were ways to get to the markets in Boston.
Oh, right.
And there was a real incentive to draw people from the hinterland into the markets of Boston by using, somebody's bridge. Right. So Andrew Craigie built the Craigie Bridge, which is now where the Museum of Science is. And he laid out the roads and even developed some of the properties along the way, pretty much basically to popularize his bridge. So many of the major roads you see in Cambridge today are really where they are primarily because of the bridge connections. That's how they were designed specifically for that purpose. Now, one thing that you see toward the bottom of this particular image here is Fort Washington. Right. Now, nowadays, Fort Washington just seems like it's sort of squeezed in between the railroad tracks and a bunch of buildings and, but the truth is that it used to be on a prominence that was actually above ground there. Yes. That actually had a very, very broad view of the Charles River. You could look across to Boston. You could look toward the harbor. You could look toward the narrowing of the river as you head upstream. I'm going to interject something that that we've produced at CCTV. I was in the class, a Fort Washington little video. Really? The ZipDocs class, and it shows we have historical photos of that promontory. So you can go to the CCTV site and look it up. Fort Washington, Now the principal land ownership in what we today call Cambridgeport was from the Dana family, which was, I believe, Judge Henry Dana's family.
Here, Dana and Dana heirs.
Yeah, and it was the Dana family laid out the street network in Cambridgeport, and they did it in relative to the rest of the city in a very orderly way.
Cambridgeport, and yet there's no Dana streets in Cambridgeport. They're up in mid-Cambridge.
That's because that's where they live.
I see.
But they laid it out. They actually had a design with these 4 parks at the corners, like Hastings Square,
Yes.
Dana Park. Named for
right,
Dana.
Of course, that's
right.
Got that. Okay.
So it was laid out orderly. Now, on the north side of Mass Ave, that was primarily bought up by speculators.
Okay.
That's why the roads don't line up on either side of the street. There's the orderliness on the south side, and then when you cross Mass Ave, many people know that you have to do a zigzag to get from one side to the other because the roads do not align. A few do, like Magazine Street going into Prospect Street, but for the most part, they definitely do not line up.
Yeah.
All right. So.
Well, we're not New York, you know.
And nor do we want to necessarily
nor
be
do
New
we
York.
want to be. Okay.
But it was a little bit of chaotic quality was really due to that. You'll also note that on the and I'll show you. Might as well go to the next slide. Okay. The next picture rolls down a little bit here.
Is right
over here, which really shows a little bit more of the development. Let's scroll down just a wee bit. There we go.
Is that enough?
Yeah, that's about right. Okay, so what you see now here is something which I find is sort of an interesting thing. Where right smack in the middle it says Cambridgeport.
Yeah.
Is not today what we call Cambridgeport.
That's true, because that's on the other side of Mass Ave, right?
So what we today call Cambridgeport is on the south side of Mass Ave, which was largely undeveloped and filled. It's yet to be filled.
I see.
Down there. So the original Cambridgeport was really to the north side of Main Street, to what today we were calling Area 4 until recently.
And now it's called the Port.
The Port.
Right.
But here's the irony of it all, sort of almost the comedy of it all, which is that the name Cambridgeport was actually an invention by the speculators who envisioned a grand port being there. They were going to develop a great port. They were building canals or utilizing some of the canals around Kendall Square. They were going to have a great marketplace, so they built a street called Market Street. And the funny thing is that the market never happened, and for all intents and purposes, the port never happened.
Right.
You know, it's kind of an irony that now that people are insisted on calling it the port,
even though it's not very near
it was never really a port. The only thing that was really more of a port was when you get down to around Kendall Square area where there was a canal network.
Right, that's true, with the Science Museum.
Now, I don't actually have the better image here in this collection of some of the canal network, but I will say that the Broad Canal is the only thing you see that's left. There's a little bit of the Leachmere Canal.
Where's the Broad? Is it on this map?
Where it says West Boston Bridge, just north of West Boston Bridge.
Is that the Mass Ave Bridge?
No. West Boston Bridge was the predecessor of the Longfellow Bridge.
Oh, okay.
Right, and
there was no Mass Ave Bridge.
Not then, no. That was called the Harvard Bridge, and that didn't arrive.
So there's Canal
so much
Street,
later.
Which we don't.
That's the canal. That's the
it's
Broad
not a street.
Canal.
That was the Broad Canal.
Now, if you look over there, you see the Broad Canal is actually entering into what's essentially a marshy area.
Yeah,
and there's all like tidal estuary and marshes.
Right here, okay.
Yeah, and for all intents and purposes, you can see from this map very clearly, on the north of East Cambridge, you see the channel of the Millers Creek or Millers River. The water was actually a little deeper there. You could bring a boat in that way.
Right.
Whereas along the Charles River, it was all tidal flats. So that you really couldn't even bring boats in so easily unless you dredged a channel through the flats.
Of Charles River, it says it right there.
Right, so you could actually bring a boat in along the Millers Creek or Millers River. But later on, if you wanted to access some of the activity around Cambridgeport, they actually dug another canal that connected the channel of the Millers River to the Broad Canal. So it was essentially one big canal that went all around East Cambridge.
Really?
Essentially making it kind of like an island. Yeah, you can click on any of these images and they all actually open in their own window, by the way.
No, I was just making it bigger.
Okay.
But that's not on this map, the connection, is it?
No, it's not in this particular map, but you do see that. So many of the major streets have names like Watertown Road is now Western Avenue.
Oh, right.
Brighton Road is now what we call River Street.
Right.
Right. And actually, if you scroll up a little bit, actually the other way, you'll see what the original name of Hampshire Street was, Middlesex Turnpike.
Oh, okay. That's when you said it was a turnpike.
Yes.
All right.
And the reason why it's called Hampshire Street is the Middlesex Turnpike today still, though it's broken up, it still exists in sections. Some pieces have been discontinued, but it was a road to New Hampshire.
And also, what's the Middlesex Canal? Any connection?
Well, they're very close to each other, but they both cut right through Middlesex County.
Okay.
So one was a turnpike and one was the canal.
So here's Middlesex Turnpike. Right.
Yeah. So the turnpikes were roads, toll roads. But canals, and they were kind of rutted. They were kind of hard to maintain. Canals, in comparison, were more like almost frictionless.
What year is this around? What are we talking about
This
here?
image here is 1830.
Okay, so we're not talking vehicles at this point, are we? I'm ignorant. When did we have the automobile?
They weren't automobiles until end of the 1800s.
So when we're talking transport, you're talking horses, buggies?
Horse-drawn wagons and carriages, yeah. So
where was the railroad? Any railroads, trains,
you
or
don't
subways?
see the railroad so much in here, but basically the Grand Junction Railroad was the one that you really came in and cut across more or less where the old Portland Street Canal.
Okay, so were there subways then, or no?
Oh, no, that happened late, I think about 1880.
So basically people got around by horse-drawn carriage, walking, or boats? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I'm going to go back
fascinating.
to us just for a second here, just to remind you that we're still here.
Yeah,
we're actually
even though it was very interesting.
Why don't you scroll down to the next image here, and we'll sort of do this, because we've got a big collection of them right in here.
I think I have.
But I always find some of the images, the map images, actually pretty telling.
Okay.
And a lot of the streets and features that people know of today, they actually have these really long histories. Okay, so here's an interesting picture or two.
Yeah.
Okay, now at the top, where the Broad Canal is now, people think of it as where you rent your kayaks. But the thing is that, and it doesn't even go up as far as 3rd Street. Well, what you're looking at here in this image is a picture of the Broad Canal between 3rd and 6th Street. So almost all the way up to where the Cambridge Brewing Company is. And it was broad, it was wide. Also, the Charles River, until I think about 1910, was tidal. So what you do is you brought your goods in on the Broad Canal, and you unloaded, and then the tide went out, and you were left high and dry.
So what direction are we looking here? Is this towards Boston?
I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that one is looking up
towards Cambridge.
Into Cambridge.
Oh, into Cambridge, okay.
Yeah, I have to say, though, I'm not 100% sure about that. You see all the lumber that's sort of gathered up
here,
on the left-hand side. Wow. I was just talking to somebody last night, pointing out some of the lumber in my house. My house was probably built
from that lumber.
That very lumber.
Wow.
Right, because it was from that era. Now, if you go right below it, you see an interesting picture.
Yeah, let me try to make that a little bigger.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure of exactly what we see in that one here.
Yeah.
But, the Longfellow Bridge, remember, I think Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was still alive. So it wasn't called the Longfellow Bridge originally. It was called the Cambridge Bridge from the Department of Redundancy Department.
Yeah.
And what you see in this image, something I find interesting, is to the left side of the image, you actually see what looks to be either a temporary span or the remnants of a previous span.
Are you talking about this right here?
Well, that's there is the bridge.
Oh, here's the bridge. Okay.
Off in the water. Yeah, off in the water. You see all of that material going pretty much all the way across the river.
Oh, you think that's another...
It might have been, I don't know for sure, but that may have been the remnants of the old West Boston Bridge, or
that makes sense.
Temporary pontoon type bridge that was used,
while they were doing the construction.
But it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. And what year is this about? Do you know?
That's I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But it would have been early 1900s, I believe.
Do you want to go to the next one, or you want to go to us?
Let's sort of go to us here.
Okay.
Right. The next one was just one of Cambridge High.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe let me go back to that one right in here, just to say a few things about this one. Cambridge High School, really Cambridge High and Latin, there was they were really a kind
It
of
was separate, right?
in many ways, as one would
yeah.
argue, a segregated school system. Not
Right.
not factually segregated, but for all intents and purposes, there was the Ringe, the School of Technical Arts, which was the successor, I believe, of the old manual training school, which was one of the three gifts from Frederick Hastings Ringe: City Hall, the main library, and the manual training school. I didn't include a picture here of the manual training school.
It gave a
But
lot.
the high school actually, the old high school actually lived until, I think they created the new school around 1978, the combined school. But they only tore down the old one, I think, in 1980.
So none of this exists anymore.
That's right. I remember.
What street is this? And this would be
I think this is at Broadway and Ellery, but I'm actually not sure, so I'm not going to.
I know they've kept the archway to one of those other.
Yeah, that's why I figure it might be actually the other end of the street.
Exactly.
But I'm not 100% sure on that. So anyway, there's a few here.
Yeah.
So amazing. See, I actually have enough here probably for 5 hours worth of programs, but
oh my goodness! Look, the half hour is almost up.
Yeah, we'll do that.
We'll do that.
We'll do a little quick
Let's
one
just
here.
do Central Square to end up, because I think that's a beauty.
Yeah, that's an interesting. This is a postcard view. Many of these structures are still existent.
Like this one?
You see the left? Yep, that's where the Woolworths building. It's now it was called the TAD building, and I don't know who owns it now, but that's still standing.
Okay, that size,
Absolutely.
really? Okay.
Yep, still there. But you'll see the one on the right. That one was gone anyway now, but it was actually cut down to 2 stories to save money on taxes. Many of the old buildings in Cambridge, in Central Square, that were like typically 4 stories, were reduced down to 2 stories to save on taxes, because once upon a time, what you did was you paid your real estate taxes based on the number of floors.
I didn't know
And
that.
so during the Depression and into the 40s, they saved money by just taking floors off. And
now it's the opposite.
A lot of these little shorties in Central Square are just vestiges of
and now you just build up
era.
because you save money.
That's it.
All right.
So anyway, we're winding down right now, but we'll be back in a few minutes, and we'll be
in the next segment
for the rest of the picture show.
Right.
So see you then.
Bye.